Here's your water. This is famous water, by the way.
Well, I feel honored.
We traveled America in 2016, 50 states in 10 months.
Yep.
There's a lot of places that do not have good water.
Yeah.
We come to really appreciate good water.
Well, I mean, living off well water is like so much nicer versus like, I think about city water.
Yeah.
Like that's a big difference.
Are you on a well water?
I'm on
Do you
well
have
water.
good,
clean water?
tasty water?
It's great. Yeah.
We hit up some free springs. There's like an internet site where you can look up springs.
Yep.
And where they're available to the public. You can go and get spring water. I feel like we found one in Vermont.
There's a lot of them. I mean, I've got, I think, three developed springs, and I imagine there's at least a handful more undeveloped.
Ben Falk was installing a spring when we went to his place in Vermont. Is that a thing? I mean,
yes,
here it's a thing. You definitely tap springs. We have several.
You set up like a box. Typically, I mean, the old school way, you like build a box of some sort, let it flow, and then to let it overflow. I mean, right now I'm gearing up to actually figure out my winter cattle area for next year, and having a constantly flowing spring-fed waterer is something I'm looking at because that way it'll keep it from freezing. That's how all the old timers in Vermont kept their water from freezing when they didn't have electricity back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
This house had no running water and electricity when they started out on it. I feel like Vermont and Western North Carolina are kind of similar in some ways.
I mean, this part of North Carolina for sure, because it's the hilly topography. I think creates a different type of community.
Yeah.
Like if I compare New Hampshire and Vermont, which I just see that much more on a regular basis, you've got New Hampshire, which is like fiercely independent, and you've got Vermont, which is much more committed to this concept of like community. And there are people who are out there will say that it's driven by the geography, where Vermont, you have all these little towns in the pockets of mountains. And so in olden times, like 200 years ago, it was hard to get there from here. And so you had to become very reliant on your neighbor. Whereas New Hampshire, it was driven by trade. There's a lot of easy north-south, east-west access, or easier. And so you had much more about individuality. And so I think when you're in like a hillside country like this, I think that carries forward a little bit. And so I think that's where some of the similarities come.
Yeah. Do you think hillside people have a more rebellious mentality?
I don't know. So I'm a native Flatlander, as they'd say in Vermont. So I grew up in like central Connecticut, and so maybe there is a certain measure of independence to it, and just sort of grit that has to come with it, because like farming in an area here, even now, is harder than a big flat property. I can only imagine 150 years ago what farming would have been like out here, trying to manage things, trying to maximize doing sustenance farming. Like that's, I don't know, that to me does not seem like an easy life.
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain measure of grit to be able to do that.
That's true. That's a good point. So they're more gritty. My dad was plowing mule. He can remember plowing a mule team at 11. So you're working when you're very young. He remember he was barefoot. I don't know what that means to the story, but he flipped this mule team at 11 years old because he's on a 35-degree slope, and he flips this team, and he can remember troubleshooting and problem solving and undoing the situation.
Wow.
At 11.
That's
When I go out west, when you go out west and it's open, people from the west coast come out here and they feel claustrophobic because of all the trees. You're nodding your head?
Yeah, but for me, it's
heard
more.
People talk about
I've
this?
heard people talk about that, and I feel like is it agoraphobic almost, where it's like there's so much open space. I feel like I'm out there and exposed. Like
that's where I was going to go.
It goes the other way.
It goes the other way because when I'm out west, I feel exposed. I don't know what I'm hiding from, but maybe this is heritage thing. I don't know. Maybe my people somewhere along the lines were in these mountains to hide.
That's where the hill people come from, I guess.
Growing the moonshine.
Exactly, yeah.
Having their own little nation, their own little country out here.
Yeah.
Minding their own business.